Every year in this country, roughly 700,000 divorces are finalised. The process is brutal in its own way. The lawyers, the paperwork, the custody hearings, the arguments over who keeps what. But for most people, a divorce ends with 2 signatures and a judge's stamp. You walk out of a courtroom and you start over. The 10 women in this video never made it to that courtroom. Every single one of them told her husband she was done. Some filed that morning and were dead by sundown. Some made it 5 days. One waited over 2 years for the courts to set her free, and her husband shot her on a sidewalk before they ever could. They did not die because they stayed. They died because they tried to leave. Today we are covering 10 wives who were murdered after filing for divorce. And by the end, you will understand why domestic violence experts call leaving the most dangerous moment in an abusive relationship. Not because the experts are guessing, but because the exposed backs of these 10 women proved them right. Case 1. The murder of Kelly Robarge. On June 27, 2013, Kelly Robarge drove to the family court in Claremont, New Hampshire, to file for divorce from her husband, James. She was 42 years old. She had her 18-month-old grandson with her. Surveillance video from inside the courthouse showed her at the counter filling out the paperwork, while the toddler walked around near her feet and sat on her hip. After more than 20 years of marriage, Kelly was done. She wanted out. A physician assistant named Frances Uptergrove had been treating Kelly for anxiety and depression for several years. Uptergrove saw Kelly that same day, June 27th. Kelly told her she was on her way to court to file. Uptergrove later testified at trial that Kelly seemed clear-headed and determined. She had made up her mind. Kelly and James Robarge had been together since they were young. They had 2 daughters, Gabrielle and Sierra. The family lived at 124 Happy Acres Road in Charlestown, a small town in southwestern New Hampshire that sits right along the Connecticut River. But by mid-2013, the marriage was falling apart. James had moved out. He was living across the state line in Saxtons River, Vermont, with his stepfather. Kelly stayed in the Charlestown house with their 5 German shepherds and was trying to move forward with her life. But Kelly was not just unhappy, she was afraid. Court documents filed by New Hampshire State Police Sergeant John Sonia revealed that Kelly had told her close friend Irene Kimball that James had recently become verbally abusive. He had pushed her. He had put his hands around her throat. Kelly also told Kimball that James had threatened to kill her by putting her in a wood splitter if she ever separated from him and filed for divorce. That was not a figure of speech. That was the specific threat he made to the mother of his 2 children. Kelly also told Kimball that James was controlling and that the abuse had been escalating. Just 2 nights before Kelly disappeared, she had been crying to Kimball about how bad things had gotten. In the days before June 27th, Kelly left a letter on the kitchen counter of the Charlestown house. In it, she told James she wanted a divorce and laid out a proposed property settlement. She suggested she keep the house. James later admitted under cross-examination that he found the letter and read it. He knew what was coming. He also admitted on the stand that he did not want a divorce and did not want to lose the house or his family. What Kelly did not know was that James had already told people what he would do if she tried to leave. Prosecutors revealed during opening statements that weeks before the filing, James told a friend he would kill Kelly. Separately, Kelly's friend Irene Kimball testified that she had heard James tell Kelly on a previous occasion that he would kill her. That time, it was over a haircut. Kelly had gotten her haircut too short, and James told her he was going to kill her for it. After filing the paperwork at the courthouse on the morning of June 27th, Kelly drove back to Charlestown with her grandson. Cell phone records presented at trial showed that James Robarge's phone was already pinging off a tower near the Happy Acres Roadhouse, starting at 11:04 a.m. He was there. He was waiting. Around 11:08 a.m., Kelly's daughter Gabrielle later told police that Kelly sent a Facebook message to a friend that said something to the effect of, "He is here." Then Kelly texted her close friend Lori Laird. Laird testified at trial about what those messages said. Kelly told her James was at the house. Laird asked if he knew about the divorce filing. Kelly's reply was the last communication anyone ever received from her. "Not yet, I'm gonna tell him." That text was sent at 11:19 a.m. Lori Laird never heard from Kelly again. Nobody did. Neighbours on Happy Acres Road later told investigators that between 1:30 and 2:30 that afternoon, They overheard a man and a woman arguing. The yelling was coming from the direction of 124 Happy Acres Road. The man was doing most of it. At around 2:40 p.m, James Robarge sent text messages to his daughter Sierra while she was at work. He asked where her mother was and when Sierra was coming home. Sierra came back to the house and found her father sitting outside. He was wearing jean shorts, sneakers and no shirt. Her 18-month-old nephew was inside the house on the couch, crying. Kelly was gone. Her purse and her car were still on the property. Her cell phone was missing. Sierra went inside and noticed things were wrong. There was blood in the bathroom around the toilet. Part of the staircase was broken. Part of the front door was damaged. A light switch near the front door was broken. Something violent had happened in that house. James told Sierra he had arrived that afternoon to find the grandson alone and crying, and no sign of Kelly. Then he left, saying he was going to look for her. Sierra called a family friend, who then contacted Charlestown police to report Kelly missing. The call came in at 4:34 p.m. Kelly would never have left that baby alone. Everyone who knew her said the same thing. Her daughter Gabrielle later told police that the grandson was freaking out and would not have been acting that way unless he had seen something horrible. That same evening, a man named Leon Morin spotted James Robarge about 10 miles from Charlestown in the town of Unity. Morin saw a man crouched beside a disabled black Volkswagen Jetta on a turnaround off a logging road near Britain Road. The man was wearing latex gloves. The car's oil pan was shattered, and pieces of it were scattered along the dirt road. Morin did not think much of it at first, but 2 days later, when James Robarge's photo appeared in the news, Morin realised the man he saw at the Jetta was James. Separately, a Claremont police officer named Eric Fosterling had received a "be on the lookout" alert for James Robarge and his black Jetta that night. Shortly after, Fosterling spotted a shirtless Robarge walking along the road less than half a mile from where his disabled vehicle had been found. When police processed the scene, the evidence was everywhere. A New Hampshire Major Crime Unit search team went through the Happy Acres Road house and found blood from a physical altercation on the inside of the front door, the floor of the entryway, furniture, and other surfaces throughout the home. Prosecutor Diana Fenton later told the jury at trial that there were countless spatters of blood in the entryway. A blood spatter analyst named Miller testified that the patterns indicated Kelly had been struck with medium blunt force, meaning fists or a blunt object, while she was standing and again while she was on the floor. James Robarge's broken down Jetta had a blood-stained trunk. Bloody items were found outside the vehicle, including a speaker cord. Investigators also found blood on James's clothing and shoes. Kelly's blood was on his sneakers, it was on his shorts, it was in his car. Senior Assistant Attorney General Susan Morell later pointed out during trial that a scratch on James Robarge's left index finger was consistent with someone trying to pry hands off their neck while being strangled. The prosecutor laid it out plain at sentencing. She said James chose to beat Kelly, chose to strangle her, and chose to kill her. She said he imposed the death penalty on Kelly Robarge for asking for a divorce, and he did it all while an 18-month-old child was in the house. For 10 days, search teams combed the woods of Unity. On July 6, 2013, a volunteer searcher named Robin Millen from New England Canine Search and Rescue found Kelly's body off a remote logging road near Britain Road, not far from where James's Jetta had broken down. The remains were badly decomposed. Animals had gotten to her. Millen testified that Kelly's head was detached from her body and her hands were missing. The medical examiner identified her through dental records and the distinctive tattoo of a hummingbird and flowers. The cause of death was ruled homicidal violence by undetermined means. Because of the condition of the body, the examiner could not determine the exact fatal injury. Metal fragments found near an oil-smeared rock on the logging road matched pieces from the shattered oil pan of James Robarge's Jetta. That physical evidence placed his car on the exact path where Kelly's body had been dumped. Prosecutor Fenton told the jury exactly what that meant. She said James dumped Kelly out in the woods like a piece of trash and left her there to rot. James Robarge was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and second-degree murder. Before his trial even started, he made things worse for himself. The week after Kelly's body was found, James called the Rockingham Medical Centre in Bellows Falls, Vermont, to make an appointment. A doctor there called police because James was expressing violent emotions and the staff was worried he would hurt himself or someone else. When Bellows Falls police stopped him, He fled in his vehicle, sped through a parking lot, ran into the medical building on foot, and was tackled and arrested inside. That was a separate incident, but it told investigators plenty about his state of mind. The trial began on January 14, 2015, in Sullivan County Superior Court. The jury, 7 women and 5 men, toured the Charlestown house and visited the trailhead of the logging road where Kelly's body was found. The prosecution called approximately 35 witnesses. The case was built on circumstantial evidence, but there was a mountain of it. Cell phone records, blood evidence, the oil pan fragments, the text messages, the threats made to friends, the neighbours who heard the argument, the latex gloves, the shirtless man walking down a road at night 10 miles from his wife's home. James took the stand and testified for 2 days. He showed no emotion the entire time. He said he arrived at the house just before 3 p.m. to drop off his dog before a doctor's appointment. He said he found his grandson alone on the couch crying and 2 of their German shepherds fighting in the kitchen. He said he had no idea Kelly had filed for divorce. When the prosecutor confronted him about the letter Kelly left on the counter, he admitted he found it. When she asked why he never told state troopers about it the night Kelly disappeared, he got testy. He said his business was nobody else's. The prosecutor asked him directly during cross-examination. She said, "You were at Happy Acres June 27th and you beat your wife bloody and the blood from her body got onto your shoes and onto your shorts. Isn't that right?" James denied it. He claimed the wounds police photographed on him that day came from breaking up a dogfight. The prosecution reminded the jury that all 5 German shepherds in that house were extremely protective and would not have let a stranger walk in and attack Kelly. The defence's argument was thin. They pointed to unidentified male DNA found near bloodstains in the house. The prosecution countered that male friends of the family had been in the home and even lived there at different times, and that DNA lingers. The defense also brought up an unidentified man seen near the Jetta in Unity and a suspicious green or blue Subaru in the area. A state trooper investigated 3 Subarus matching the description. None of the owners had been in the area at the time. After 12 hours of deliberation spread across 3 days, the jury came back with a verdict. Guilty of second-degree murder. They rejected the first-degree charge, but found that James's conduct showed extreme indifference to the value of human life. One juror told reporters afterward that the oil pan fragments were the key piece of evidence. Another juror, a mechanic by trade, had actually reconstructed the fragments during deliberations. Sentencing came on April 4, 2015, in front of Judge Brian T. Tucker. Both daughters addressed the court. Gabrielle Robarge Pellerin, who was 26 at the time, said she now had to say goodbye to both her mother and her father. Sierra, 21, said she loved and missed her mum more and more every day. She said her mother did not deserve what happened to her. Through his lawyer, James read a statement. He called Kelly the love of his life. He told his daughters he loved them more than life itself. He did not once look at the family members who spoke. His face stayed blank the entire time. The same expressionless stare he wore through the whole trial. Judge Tucker said he believed James Robarge lied under oath and tried to conceal the crime from the beginning. He sentenced him to 30 years to life in prison, with credit for 612 days already served. He also ordered James to pay up to $25,000 in restitution to cover funeral costs, therapy for his daughters, and other expenses. James later challenged that amount. After years of legal fighting, the restitution was lowered to $14,492. James Robarge has no assets. He earns $3 a day working at New Hampshire State Prison. At that rate, it would take him over 13 years just to pay off the restitution. He appealed his conviction to the New Hampshire Supreme Court in 2017, arguing that the cell phone evidence used to place him at the house was unreliable. The court rejected his appeal. Kelly Robarge filed for divorce on a Thursday morning because she wanted a new life. By that Thursday afternoon, she was beaten to death in her own entryway, while her grandson sat in the next room. Her body was dumped in the woods 10 miles from her house and left there for 10 days. She had a hummingbird tattooed on her body. That is how they identified what was left of her. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Kelly Robarge's last text message told a friend she was about to tell her husband the truth about the divorce. The next wife on this list also tried to tell her husband the truth about wanting out, but after 43 years of marriage, her husband's reaction was just as deadly. He walked away from the crime scene in her car, thinking he had gotten away with it. Case 2. The murder of Feli Ramirez. Benjamin and Feli Ramirez had been married for more than 40 years. They lived together in a house on the 900 block of East Joel Street in Carson, California, a residential city in the South Bay area of Los Angeles County. They raised 2 children together, a son named Philip and a daughter named Kimberly. From the outside, their marriage looked like one of those rare ones that simply lasted. 43 years under the same roof. But what was happening inside that house was nothing like what it looked like from the street. Their children would later describe their father as controlling. In victim impact statements read aloud by prosecutor Abigail Barron in Compton Superior Court, Philip and Kimberly both said that Feli had spent years making excuses for Benjamin. She covered for him. She hid the reality of the marriage from the people around her. They described their mother as a selfless woman of God who was full of love and joy. She poured herself into her children and into other people's lives, and for decades she poured herself into a marriage where she was not being treated the way she deserved. In 2018, at 67 years old, Feli finally made the decision to end it. She filed for divorce from Benjamin. After 43 years, she was done. On the afternoon of October 5th, 2018, a Friday, Feli served Benjamin with the divorce papers at their home on East Joel Street. She did not leave after handing him the documents. She stayed. According to Deputy District Attorney Abigail Barron, who prosecuted the case, Feli remained at the home to talk. Maybe she wanted to explain herself. Maybe she thought they could handle it like 2 adults who had spent over 4 decades building a family together. Whatever her reason for staying, it was the last decision she ever made. Benjamin Ramirez, 68 years old at the time, responded to those divorce papers by loading a handgun. He came back to where Feli was and shot her 3 times at close range, once in the head, twice in the upper body. Judge Tammy Chung Ryu stated during the sentencing hearing that every single one of those shots was fatal. Every single one was fired at close range. After killing his wife, Benjamin did not call police. He did not call his children. He did not check on the woman he had been married to for over 4 decades. Instead, he took a 2010 silver Honda Accord and drove away from the house. The judge stated at sentencing that Benjamin fled in the car deliberately so that anyone who came to visit would see the vehicle was gone and assume Feli was not home. He was trying to buy himself time. He wanted people to think she had simply gone out. Judge Ryu addressed this directly from the bench. She told Benjamin that after shooting Feli, he left her body at the house and made it hard for the people who loved her to find her. It did not work for long. Family members arrived at the East Joel Street house later that same day. The Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office confirmed in its official press release that Feli's family discovered her body on October 5th. Deputies from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department responded to a report of a person down at approximately 3:38 to 3:40 p.m. They found Feli Bernarban Ramirez, 67, dead at the scene from gunshot wounds to her upper body. Benjamin was nowhere to be found. The Sheriff's Department named Benjamin a person of interest. They released his photo and description to the public. Deputy D'Angelo Robinson, a sheriff's spokesman, told reporters at the time that the motive for the crime was unknown and the investigation was ongoing. Detectives told the public that Benjamin was last seen driving the silver Honda Accord, a 4-door sedan with California license plate 6NIE524. They asked anyone with information to call the Sheriff's Homicide Bureau. The following day, October 6th, the coroner's office officially identified the victim as Feli Ramirez. That same day, around 10:15 p.m, detectives located Benjamin. He was still in the neighborhood near their home. He had not run far. They arrested him and booked him at the Sheriff's Carson station. Then something happened that is hard to explain to anyone outside the criminal justice system. 2 days after his arrest, Benjamin Ramirez was released from custody. The Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office said they needed more evidence before filing charges. According to Sheriff's Lieutenant Rodney Moore, prosecutors asked for additional evidence to support the case. County inmate records confirmed that Benjamin walked out of jail. The man who had shot his wife 3 times at close range in their own home was free. For 10 days, he was out. A 68-year-old man with a dead wife and a gun charge hanging over him, walking around the same neighborhood where Feli's family was trying to grieve. On October 18, 2018, prosecutors had enough. Benjamin was arrested again. This time he was charged with murder. He was booked into a Los Angeles County jail. According to the Daily Breeze, he pleaded not guilty on Monday, October 22nd, in Compton Superior Court. He was held on $3 million bail. His next court appearance was scheduled for November 15th. The case moved through the system for nearly a year. The trial took place in September 2019. On September 10th, a jury found Benjamin Cristino Ramirez guilty of first-degree murder with an allegation of using a handgun. The first-degree finding meant the jury believed this was premeditated. He did not snap in a moment of rage. He made a decision, loaded a weapon, and carried it out. The conviction carried a potential sentence of up to 50 years to life in state prison. Sentencing was set for October 1st, 2019, in Compton Superior Court before Judge Tammy Chung Ryu. At the sentencing hearing, the courtroom heard from the people Feli left behind. Prosecutor Abigail Barron read the victim impact statements that Philip and Kimberly Ramirez had written. They talked about who their mother was, not just as a victim in a court file, but as a person. They described her as selfless, full of love and joy. They said she spent her entire marriage making excuses for their father. They said she had the courage to finally file for divorce after decades of being controlled. And then the man she was leaving killed her for it. Benjamin Ramirez also addressed the court. He apologized to the family and friends of his wife. He said he loved Feli for all 43 years they were married. He said he would always remember the joy of raising their children together. He said he was sorry and he regretted what happened. Judge Ryu was not moved. She laid out the facts one by one before announcing the sentence. She pointed out that after killing Feli, Benjamin never reached out to his children to tell them what he had done. He never called the police to report the shooting. He lied to investigators after his first arrest, and then he fled the crime scene in a car to make it look like Feli had left the house on her own. Every action he took after pulling the trigger was designed to protect himself, not to take responsibility. The judge sentenced Benjamin Ramirez to 35 years to life in state prison. It was less than the maximum of 50 years to life that he had been facing, but for a 69-year-old man, the math was simple. He would almost certainly die in prison. Even the minimum 35 years would put him past 100 years old before he could be considered for parole. Before all of this, Benjamin Ramirez had no criminal record, not a single arrest in nearly 7 decades of life, no prior charges, no history in the system. He was, on paper, a man who had never broken the law, but on the afternoon his wife of 43 years handed him divorce papers and sat down to talk about it, he answered her with a loaded gun and 3 bullets fired at point-blank range. The Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office issued a formal press release on October 1st, 2019, confirming the sentence. The case number was TA147299. It was investigated by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and prosecuted by Deputy District Attorney Abigail Barron. Feli Ramirez spent her entire adult life with one man. She raised 2 children with him. She kept his secrets. She made excuses for his behavior. She held the marriage together for over 4 decades, even when it was hurting her. When she finally gathered the courage to leave, she tried to do it the right way. She filed the papers. She served them in person. She stayed to have a conversation. She gave him the respect of a face-to-face discussion after 43 years. He gave her 3 gunshots and a drive-away in her car. Her children had to stand in a courtroom and read their own words about what their mother meant to them, while the man who raised them sat at the defense table. Philip and Kimberly Ramirez lost their mother to murder and their father to prison in the same act. One moment on one Friday afternoon in October 2018 destroyed everything that family had built over 4 decades. Feli was 67 years old. She had survived 43 years in a controlling marriage. The first day she tried to take her life back was the last day she was alive. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Benjamin Ramirez killed his wife because she wanted to leave after 4 decades. The next husband on this list did not even wait that long. Mary Joe Jansen had barely finished burying her own mother when her husband decided that the divorce papers she had served him was something he could solve with a .44 caliber handgun on the same night she was supposed to finally walk out at door. Case 3. The murder of Mary Joe Jansen. February 8, 2019 was already the worst day of Mary Joe Jansen's life before it became the last. That morning, the 46-year-old mother of two buried her own mother, Sharon Loons. She attended the funeral. She said goodbye. She grieved with her family. And then she went home to the house she shared with her husband Matthew on the 2700 block of 95th Avenue Northeast in Blaine, Minnesota, a suburb about 15 miles north of Minneapolis. Mary Jo had served Matthew divorce papers around Thanksgiving of 2018. That was roughly 2.5 months before her death. Despite the pending divorce, the couple was still living together in the same house. That arrangement was not going to last much longer. Family members told detectives that Mary Jo had recently made the decision to permanently move out. The date she picked was Saturday, February 9th. One more night in that house. One more sleep. Then she would be gone. Matthew knew. Family members confirmed to investigators that he was aware she was planning to leave the next day. He had been holding those divorce papers for over 2 months, and in the weeks leading up to February 8th, he had made statements to Mary Jo that made his position clear. According to the criminal complaint filed in Anoka County District Court, investigators learned that Matthew had previously told Mary Jo things to the effect of, "You are not leaving this house," and "I will not let you leave." Those were not requests. Those were threats. Something happened in December 2018 that showed how dangerous the situation had become. Family members told detectives that after an incident that month, all firearms were removed from the home and from Matthew. The complaint does not spell out what that December incident was, but someone in the family saw enough to decide the guns needed to go. By February, a new gun was in the house. Detectives found a receipt from a local Fleet Farm store showing that Matthew had recently purchased a Smith & Wesson .44 caliber handgun. The receipt was dated February 2019. He bought it after the family had already taken his guns away. He went out and got another one. On the night of February 8th, after burying her mother, after returning to a house where her estranged husband was waiting, Mary Joe Jansen was shot twice. The Anoka County medical examiner performed the autopsy and detailed what each bullet did. The first shot hit her in the neck at intermediate range. It punctured her carotid artery. The medical examiner said that wound created blood spray, but likely would not have been immediately fatal on its own. There was a possibility of survival with immediate medical attention. That shot caused Mary Jo to fall to the ground. The second shot hit her in the chest while she was lying on the floor. Investigators determined this based on the exit wound, which had atypical abrasions, showing that her body was against a hard surface when the round was fired. A bullet defect was found underneath her body near the exit wound. That chest wound decimated both the left and right ventricles of her heart. The medical examiner said it was irreparably fatal. There was no surviving that one. Police found Mary Jo on the floor of an upstairs bedroom. Blood spray covered the bedroom door in large quantities. Large pools of blood sat near the doorway and next to her body. 2 spent .44 caliber cartridges were recovered in the bedroom. The Smith & Wesson handgun was found unloaded on the steps of the home. In the late evening of February 8, 2019, dispatchers received a 911 call. The caller was Matthew Lynn Jansen, 46 years old, born June 20, 1972. He told the operator he had killed his wife with his gun. He said the weapon was now unloaded and sitting in the foyer of the home. Police were dispatched to the residence on 95th Avenue Northeast. When Blaine Police and Anoka County Sheriff's deputies arrived, they communicated with Matthew and told him to come outside without the gun. He walked out, no standoff, no struggle, no resistance. He simply stepped out of the house where his wife's body was still on the bedroom floor upstairs. While officers were on scene processing the house and securing evidence, Matthew made 2 statements that prosecutors and the judge would reference for years afterward. The first was 4 words: "I can't believe I did it." The second was the one that defined this case. According to the criminal complaint, Matthew told officers, "I guess I don't have to worry about a divorce now." He said that while forensic technicians were still documenting the blood upstairs, he said that while his wife's body was still warm, the woman had buried her mother that morning. She had been planning to start a new life the next day, and her husband stood there and cracked a joke about not needing to deal with divorce paperwork anymore. Detectives searched the home and found what they believed to be Matthew's truck in the garage. Inside the truck, they located an empty .44 handgun case. That matched the Smith & Wesson found on the steps. The receipt from Fleet Farm confirmed the recent purchase. The family had removed his guns in December. He went and bought a new one. He kept it in his truck, and on the night of February 8th, he used it. Matthew Jansen was arrested at the scene and charged with first-degree premeditated murder and second-degree intentional murder. He was held at the Anoka County Detention Center. The criminal complaint was signed by Detective Nathan Arvidson of the Blaine Police Department and approved by Assistant Anoka County Attorney Christian C.S. Weir. The complaint was filed on March 26, 2019, and a Judge Daniel A. Fallon signed the finding of probable cause that same day. In March 2020, Matthew took a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to second-degree intentional murder. The first-degree premeditated murder charge was dismissed as part of the agreement. Under Minnesota law, second-degree intentional murder carries a maximum sentence of 40 years. Sentencing came on December 10, 2020, in Anoka County District Court before Judge Deanna Street. Prosecutors asked the judge to go above the standard sentencing range. They argued two specific things. First, that Matthew invaded his wife's zone of privacy to commit the crime. She was in her own bedroom, in her own home, in the one place where she had every right to feel safe. Second, that he showed no genuine remorse. The comment about not having to worry about a divorce was not something a remorseful person says. That was the statement of a man who saw what he did as a solution to a problem. Judge Street agreed with both arguments. Anoka County Attorney Tony Palumbo put it plainly in a statement released after the sentencing. He said it was particularly cruel for children to lose their mother at the hands of someone who was supposed to emotionally support a family, not violently tear it apart. He said the emotional impact was made worse because the victim had attended her mother's funeral just that morning. Mary Jo buried her mother and then was murdered by her husband on the same day. The judge handed down 40 years. That was the maximum sentence allowed under Minnesota law for second-degree intentional murder. With credit for time served since his February 2019 arrest, Matthew Jansen would serve approximately 25 years in prison, with the balance on supervised release. His defense attorney, Michelle Margolis, publicly objected. She told Oxygen.com that she believed the sentence was excessive and should be appealed. She said the facts of the case did not warrant the maximum sentence under Minnesota statutes. The judge did not care. 40 years. The Anoka County Attorney's Office used the sentencing as an opportunity to highlight resources for domestic abuse victims. Their press release referenced Violence Free Minnesota's 2019 homicide report, which stated that attempts to separate from an abuser can increase the risk of lethality for victims. The report also flagged an abuser's access to firearms as a major red flag. In Mary Jo's case, both of those factors were present. She was leaving, and he had a gun. Mary Jo Jansen was born July 20, 1972. Her maiden name was Loons. Her obituary, published in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, called her one of the strongest women this world has seen. It said she was tough yet tender, strong yet caring. She loved her children, her family, and her friends. She made sure everyone had whatever they needed before thinking of herself. She was gorgeous inside and out. Always quick-witted with a joke or a one-liner to make you laugh. She was a proud member of the Fond du Lac band of Lake Superior, Chippewa. She loved spending time up north. She loved campfires. She loved being at a lake or on a beach. Her obituary said she was fun-loving and enjoyed good times. She was survived by her two children, Bradley and Emma. She was preceded in death by her mother, Sharon Loons, the same mother whose funeral she had attended just hours before she was killed. The obituary did not mention Matthew Jansen by name. It did not mention the murder. It simply said, Mary Jo was tragically taken from them on February 8, 2019, the evening of their mother's funeral. The family wrote those words knowing exactly how she died and who did it. They chose to remember her for who she was, not for what was done to her. Mary Jo Jansen had a life waiting for her on the other side of that front door. Saturday morning was supposed to be the start of it. She had done the hard part. She filed the papers. She picked a move-out date. She survived the worst day of her life, burying her mother. All she had to do was make it through one more night. Her husband made sure she did not. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Matthew Jansen had months to accept the divorce and let Mary Jo go. The next husband on this list had only 6 months of marriage behind him when his wife served him papers, and less than 24 hours later, Alicia Lofton was shot dead trying to climb through a window to escape the man she had married just half a year earlier. Case 4. The murder of Alicia Lofton. Alicia Danielle Lofton got married in February 2023. By August of that same year, she was dead. Her entire marriage to Marcus Durial Lofton lasted about 6 months. In that window of time, she experienced a wedding, a domestic violence arrest, a protection order, a set of divorce papers, and a murder. She was 38 years old and had 3 children. The problems started fast. Just 3 months after the wedding, in May 2023, Marcus was arrested for assaulting Alicia. Court records confirmed the arrest. A condition of his bond from that May arrest was that he would have no contact with Alicia. A protection order was put in place against him. A judge had reviewed the situation and concluded that Marcus posed enough of a danger to his wife that a court needed to formally tell him to stay away. The system flagged him. The courts got involved. On paper, everything was being done right. Alicia and Marcus lived in a house in the 1400 block of Union Avenue Southeast, near the intersection of Adams Street and Union Avenue on the southeast side of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Even with the protection order in place, the shared property kept them tethered to each other. Alicia wanted a clean break. She wanted the marriage over and the house sold. She was done with Marcus Lofton. On August 16, 2023, Alicia served Marcus with divorce papers. She told him she was ending the marriage and putting the house on the market. 6 months of marriage, a domestic violence arrest, a protection order, and now paperwork making it final. Alicia had done everything a person is supposed to do when they are in danger. She reported the abuse. She got the order. She filed for divorce. She followed every step the legal system tells victims to follow. Marcus responded the next morning. On August 17, 2023, at around 8 a.m, Marcus made contact with Alicia at the Union Avenue house. He was not supposed to be there. He was not supposed to be anywhere near her. The protection order from May said so. He showed up anyway. According to the probable cause affidavit filed by Grand Rapids Police, Marcus told investigators what happened next. He said he and Alicia got into an argument that morning. During the fight, he said he grabbed Alicia's pistol, a Glock, from a drawer. He claimed he tried to pistol whip her with it and that the gun accidentally went off. That was his version, the accident story, the self-defense angle. What happened in the minutes that followed destroyed that version completely. After the gun went off, Alicia ran. She fled into another room inside the house and locked the door behind her. She was trying to put a physical barrier between herself and the man who had just fired a weapon during a fight. Marcus did not stop. He told detectives himself that he forced the door open. When he broke through, he found Alicia trying to climb out of a window. She was halfway through it. She was trying to get out of her own home to save her own life. Marcus opened fire. According to police, he shot Alicia numerous times as she tried to escape through that window. Multiple news outlets reporting on the sentencing stated he fired more than a dozen rounds. She collapsed outside the house, on the ground next to the building. Grand Rapids Police responded to calls of shots fired in the area of Adams Street Southeast and Union Avenue. When officers arrived, they found Alicia Lofton on the ground beside the house with multiple gunshot wounds to her head and body. The Kent County Medical Examiner ruled her death a homicide. She was pronounced dead at the scene. A neighbour told police he had heard arguing before the gunshots started. He also saw a black male leave the area in a maroon SUV. Investigators identified Marcus Lofton as a possible suspect quickly. He had prior domestic violence incidents involving Alicia. He drove a vehicle matching the neighbour's description. An officer located Marcus walking in the 1200 block of North Avenue Northeast. He was arrested the same day. At the police station, Marcus told detectives everything. He confirmed that Alicia had served him divorce papers on August 16th. He confirmed she was selling the house. He described the argument, the gun, and the shooting. According to the affidavit, his own words to police were damning. The document stated that Marcus said he shot Alicia numerous times before he fled in his maroon SUV. Marcus Durial Lofton was arraigned on August 18, 2023 in Grand Rapids District Court. He was charged with open murder and felony firearm. Open murder in Michigan allows a jury to convict on either first-degree murder, which carries mandatory life without parole, or second-degree murder, which carries a term of years up to life. He was held without bond. His next court appearance was set for September 5th. The case drew attention from Kent County prosecutor Chris Becker, who spoke publicly about the surge of domestic violence homicides in the region. Becker told reporters that domestic violence was on the short list of crimes his office dealt with on a daily basis. He said it did not discriminate based on geography or income level. It was everywhere. He pointed out that in 2022, Kent County had seen 5 or 6 domestic violence homicides, one of the highest totals in recent memory. In response, $4 million in federal coronavirus relief funding had been set aside for Kent County's Domestic Violence Action Network. Part of that money went toward establishing a domestic violence court. Another goal was creating a lethality review program designed to identify high-risk cases before they turn deadly. Alicia Lofton's case was exactly the kind of situation that program was built to catch. The case went to trial in May 2025. The trial began on Monday, May 19th, and lasted a full week. After 5 days of proceedings, the jury could not reach a unanimous verdict. A mistrial was declared on May 23, 2025. Despite Marcus's own admissions to police, despite the protection order, despite the timeline showing he killed Alicia one day after being served divorce papers, despite the fact that he chased her through the house and shot her as she climbed out a window, 12 people could not agree. Rather than face a second trial, Marcus took a plea deal. In July 2025, he pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and felony firearm. The agreement included an understanding that he would receive a minimum term of 25 years for the murder charge. The sentencing hearing took place on August 7, 2025, before Judge Scott Noto. Marcus did not address the court. His attorney said he expressed sorrow and remorse for his actions. The people who actually spoke were the ones who lost Alicia. Her aunt, Jennifer Lee, addressed Marcus directly. She told the court she had known something was wrong with him from the start. She said the first time she saw him on Alicia's social media, she got a bad feeling. She said Alicia hid the marriage from her family because she knew they would not approve. Lee told the court that Alicia and she grew up like sisters in the same house, and that she would have fought Alicia over the decision to marry Marcus if she had known about it beforehand. Alicia's father, Arthur Joseph, also took the stand. He did not hold back. He told the court he did not like Marcus from the first time they met. He called him a piece of garbage. He said Marcus did not understand how close he had come to being a dead man himself. As he walked back to his seat, he turned toward Marcus and called him a coward. His exact words, according to WZZM 13, were, "Coward is what you are. You're a cowardly bastard." Alicia's oldest daughter, Brooklyn Johnson, stared directly at Marcus as she spoke. She told him she did not want to cry in front of him because it would show weakness and give him the satisfaction of thinking he had won. She told the court she had graduated from Western Michigan University the year before and that her #1 supporter was not there that day because of what Marcus had done. She said taking her mother away had forced her into a role she was not ready for. She was hurting, still mourning, still grieving. Judge Noto sentenced Marcus Lofton to 25 to 50 years for second-degree murder and 2 years for the felony firearm charge. The sentences run consecutively, meaning one after the other. He received credit for 721 days already served since his August 2023 arrest. The judge did not deliver a long speech. He told Marcus that Alicia's father had said it best and referred him to those words. Marcus Lofton had prior convictions for firearms and drugs dating back to 2000, according to the Law and Crime Network. He was a convicted felon who should not have had access to a firearm in the first place. He was under a protection order that told him to stay away from his wife. He was out on bond from a domestic violence arrest 3 months earlier, and on the morning of August 17, 2023, he walked into the house he was not supposed to be in, grabbed a gun during an argument, and shot his wife to death as she tried to climb through a window to escape. Alicia Lofton did everything the system tells a victim to do. She reported the violence. She secured a protection order. She filed for divorce. She tried to physically escape through a window. None of it saved her. The legal system watched her check every box and still could not keep her alive. She was 38 years old. She had been married for 6 months. Her 3 children were getting ready to go back to school when their mother was killed. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Alicia Lofton was killed one day after serving divorce papers to a man she had been married to for half a year. The next wife on this list won everything in divorce court on a Thursday morning. The house, the truck, full custody of the children. By Thursday afternoon, her ex-husband had kicked down her bedroom door and put 3 bullets in her head while their kids listened from the next room. Case 5. The murder of Marili Cruz. On the morning of August 17, 2023, Marili Cruz walked into a Las Vegas courtroom for a hearing related to her divorce from Royden Dorothy Mendoza. She was 34 years old, a mother, a woman who had emigrated from Cuba, who held a real estate license, a bartender's license, and ran a food truck. She had been trying to get herself and her children out of a marriage that had turned violent. Court filings submitted by Cruz herself stated that she had contacted police in the past about domestic violence committed by her husband, but that she became afraid and did not continue with the case. It was dismissed. Their 14-year-old daughter told police her parents got into verbal and physical fights on a regular basis. While the divorce played out, Marili had been living with her parents at the destination's Spring Valley apartment complex at 3925 South Jones Boulevard, near Flamingo Road. She had her daughters with her. She was building distance between herself and the man she was leaving. Dorothy Mendoza had filed for divorce himself back in July 2023, but the outcome of the August 17th hearing was not what he wanted. That morning at 10 a.m, both of them appeared in family court. The judge ruled in Marili's favour. She won the house. She won the truck. She won full custody of their 2 daughters, the 14-year-old and a 2-year-old they shared. Everything she asked for, she got. After the hearing, Marili went back to her parents' apartment and told her family the good news. Her 14-year-old daughter later told police that when she came home from school that day, her mother told her she had won the house, the truck, custody of the children. Royden Dorothy Mendoza, 38 at the time, lost everything in that courtroom. He lost the house. He lost the truck. He lost custody of both daughters. Clark County Deputy District Attorney Corey Hallquist laid it out plainly at sentencing. He said Dorothy Mendoza wanted to be vindicated. He was upset about losing control. He wanted revenge. According to Hallquist, after leaving court, Dorothy Mendoza went home and cut the gas line to the stove. Then he packed clothes and headed to the apartment where Marili was staying with her parents. At around 2:30 that afternoon, just hours after the hearing, Marili was sitting on the second-floor balcony of her parents' apartment with other people. She received a text message from Dorothy Mendoza asking if he could come over and swap out vehicles. He wanted the keys to a grey Toyota Sienna. Marili ignored the message. He showed up anyway. When he arrived, he asked for the keys to the Sienna. Marili told him no. She said she still had belongings inside the vehicle that needed to be removed first. According to the arrest report, Dorothy Mendoza then tried to climb up the balcony to reach her. Someone on the balcony pushed him back down. That is when everything turned. Dorothy Mendoza ran around the building to the front door. The people on the balcony rushed inside to lock it. They were not fast enough. He started shooting at the door and kicking it at the same time. He blasted his way through the security door and the front door of the apartment. Investigators later recovered 11 shell casings from the scene. Both doors had been shot off. 11 rounds fired inside and around a family home in a 55 and older community in broad daylight. Marili and her 14-year-old daughter ran to a bedroom and locked the door. They were hiding, trying to survive. Marili was so terrified that she called 911 from inside the bedroom, while Dorothy Mendoza was breaking his way in. Prosecutors played that 911 call in court during the sentencing hearing. 2 gunshots could be heard in the background of the recording. Dorothy Mendoza kicked the bedroom door down. According to the arrest report and the daughter's statement to police, he grabbed Marili by the hair, pulled her head backward and shot her. The daughter, identified in some reports as Miriam Martinez, watched it happen from inside the room. Prosecutors said at sentencing that Dorothy Mendoza fired 2 shots, one to her shoulder and one described by Deputy DA Hallquist as an execution-style shot to the forehead. The arrest report states he shot her 3 times in the head. Her body was later found in the hallway between the bedroom and bathroom with a fatal gunshot wound to the forehead. A 9mm handgun was recovered next to her body. He was not finished. Dorothy Mendoza turned toward the master bedroom where Marili's mother, Marili Cruz, her brother-in-law Ivan Brizuela Esparza, and others had barricaded themselves. He shot through that door. Marili's mother was hit in the left eye. Her brother-in-law was hit in the left elbow. Both were transported to University Medical Center. Both survived but required hospital treatment. The 2-year-old daughter that Dorothy Mendoza and Marili shared custody of was also inside the apartment during the entire attack. She was physically unharmed. A witness inside the apartment told police that Dorothy Mendoza's family had been afraid of him for a long time. Detectives wrote in the arrest report that a witness said Dorothy Mendoza had made statements in the past that he would kill anyone like a dog who came into his house. After shooting Marili, Dorothy Mendoza started moving through the apartment. That is when the 14-year-old daughter did something that the prosecutor would later call one of the bravest things he had ever seen. She ran to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and stabbed Dorothy Mendoza in the back. He was not her biological father. He had just killed her mother in front of her. And she went after him with a kitchen knife. He turned on her. He took the blade and tried to stab her back. She grabbed the knife with her hand to stop him from plunging it into her body. The blade cut her hand badly, but she stopped him. She pushed him away. Dorothy Mendoza then dropped the knife and fled the apartment. At 2:40 p.m, the daughter called 911. She told the dispatcher to hurry up. She said he had a gun. The dispatcher could hear gunshots and screaming in the background. When the daughter came back to the phone, she told the dispatcher her mother was dead. Officers from the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department arrived at the apartment and found 3 gunshot victims. Marili was pronounced dead by medical personnel at the scene. 30 minutes later, at 3:10 p.m, security cameras captured Dorothy Mendoza parking his car in front of the LVMPD Records and Fingerprint Bureau on South Martin Luther King Boulevard. He got out of the vehicle wearing a shirt saturated with blood. He walked inside, asked to speak with an officer, then went back outside and sat down on a bench. When police approached and asked what happened, he gave them a 4-word answer: "I killed my wife." He was taken into custody and treated for the stab wound on his back. Dorothy Mendoza was charged with open murder, 2 counts of attempted murder with a deadly weapon, domestic battery with a deadly weapon, battery, assault with a deadly weapon, child abuse, residential burglary, and 11 counts of illegally discharging a firearm. He initially pleaded not guilty on August 22, 2023. In May 2024, Dorothy Mendoza was found incompetent to stand trial. District Judge Christy Craig noted 2 incompetent findings and a possible delusional disorder. He was sent for treatment. After receiving treatment, he was restored to competency. His trial was rescheduled. On August 25, 2025, the day jury selection was supposed to begin, Dorothy Mendoza took a deal. He pleaded guilty to 1 count of murder with use of a deadly weapon. The additional charges, attempted murder, battery, assault, child abuse, all of it, were dismissed as part of the agreement. During the plea hearing, he nearly derailed the deal. After confirming to District Judge Michelle Levitt that he had killed his wife, he suddenly contradicted himself. Through an interpreter, he said he did not shoot his wife and that it was an accident. Judge Levitt told him directly that she would not accept his plea if he said that. He eventually confirmed the guilty plea. Sentencing came on October 15, 2025, in Clark County District Court before Judge Michelle Levitt. Deputy DA Corey Hallquist laid out the full timeline for the court. He described how Dorothy Mendoza had left court upset, went home and sabotaged the gas line, packed his things, and drove to the apartment to confront Marili. Hallquist said nothing could put you in the moment of what Mary Cruz experienced, the terror and horror as Dorothy Mendoza broke in with a gun and executed his wife in front of his own child and stepdaughter. The 14-year-old daughter, now 17, addressed the court. Miriam Martinez told Judge Levitt that after her mother was killed, the only thing she could think about was protecting what she had left. She said she grabbed the knife because she was not going to let the man who killed her mother walk away alive. She was smaller than him and not very strong, but she found the strength to push him away. Marili's mother, Marili Cruz, wept as she testified. Through tears, she told the court she had a lot of pain in her heart. Dorothy Mendoza addressed the court through an interpreter. He apologized. He said he never went to the apartment with the intention to harm anyone. His public defender told the court that Dorothy Mendoza knew he should not have lost control, but that being upset and angry, he entered what the lawyer called a red zone of emotions. Judge Levitt was not interested in the red zone. She sentenced Roydan Dorothy Mendoza to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder. On top of that, she added 2 consecutive terms of 8 to 20 years for the deadly weapon enhancements. Marili Cruz had emigrated from Cuba She had a real estate license, a food truck, and a bartender's license. Her family friend Hilanda Loaiza said she was mostly staying home in recent times because of her husband's behaviour. She had filed for divorce, gone to court, and won everything. The house, the truck, full custody. She did exactly what the system told her to do. She filed. She showed up. She won. And the man she beat in that courtroom decided the ruling did not apply to him. She was 34 years old. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Dorothy Mendoza killed his wife hours after losing in divorce court. The next husband did not even wait for the paperwork to reach him. Kayla Flaherty had filed for divorce, but the papers had not yet been served when her husband beat her to death with a hammer in their living room, then set her body on fire and sank it in a river. Case 6. The murder of Kayla Flaherty. Kayla Elise Flaherty was born on August 16, 1988 in Vincennes, Indiana. She was the daughter of Keith and Carol Goldman. She grew up in that part of southern Indiana where the towns are small, the roads are long, and everybody knows everybody. She became a physical therapist assistant and worked at Good Samaritan Hospital in Vincennes. She was a devoted member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. She sang in the church choir. She led the congregation in song. She worked with the nursery, the children's groups, and the young women's organizations. Outside of church, she volunteered her time helping the Princeton High School band color guard. She loved crafting and cooking and throwing herself into her children's lives. She had 2 kids, a daughter named Sophie Jean and a son named Parker Keith. She was 36 years old. Kayla lived with her husband Daniel Keith Flaherty, 42, in a home in the 7,000 block of East 500 North, a rural stretch north of Patoka in Gibson County, Indiana. Patoka is a tiny town, around 500 people, the kind of place where the nearest hospital is a 20-minute drive and your closest neighbour might be across a field. Their home sat out there in that open countryside, isolated from the kind of foot traffic or noise that would alert anyone if something went wrong. On September 20th, 2024, Kayla filed for divorce from Daniel. Court documents confirmed the filing date, but the papers had not yet been served to Daniel. He had not been handed the official documents by the time everything happened. According to the probable cause affidavit prepared by Gibson County Sheriff's Office Detective Roger Ballard, Daniel told investigators that when Kayla left the house, they were having a discussion about their relationship. That was how he framed it. A discussion. The night of Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024, a license plate reader captured Kayla's 2019 Toyota Highlander on 6th Street in Vincennes at 11:50 p.m. Her credit card was used at the Huck's gas station on 6th Street near US Highway 41, the same city where her mother Carol Goldman lived. Daniel later told investigators that Kayla came back to the house after that stop to bring a backpack. What happened after she returned to that house is something only Daniel Flaherty knows for certain, and he would eventually tell police every detail. According to the affidavit, Daniel hit Kayla several times with a hammer in their living room on the morning of October 3rd, 2024. He beat her to death inside their own home, in the same room where their children had probably sat watching television or playing on the floor. He used a hammer, not a gun, not a knife, a hammer. And he did not stop after one swing. He hit her several times. That was the language he used in his own confession. Several times. After Kayla was dead, Daniel did not call 911. He did not call an ambulance. He did not tell anyone what he had done. Instead, he began covering it up. He moved Kayla's body from the living room into the 2019 Toyota Highlander. He concealed her inside the vehicle. Then he rigged the SUV to drive into the Wabash River. He set fire to the Highlander with Kayla's body inside it. He drove it to a remote location in far southwest Knox County, just off Wabash River Road, and sent the burning vehicle into the water. The SUV, the body, the phone, the identifying documents, all of it went into the river. Then Daniel Flaherty went home and waited. On the evening of October 3rd, at approximately 9:06 p.m, Daniel contacted the Gibson County Sheriff's Office. He reported Kayla missing. He told authorities that his wife had left their home at about 1:30 a.m. that morning, with plans to drive to her mother's house in Vincennes. He said Kayla would typically text him when she arrived somewhere and that she had not texted him. He gave police information about the typical route Kayla would take to get from Patoka to Vincennes. He described it like a normal trip that just never reached its destination. A worried husband calling in because his wife never checked in. Volunteers and officers searched that route. They found nothing. No vehicle, no accident scene, no sign of Kayla anywhere between Patoka and Vincennes. Kayla had been scheduled to work at Good Samaritan Hospital on Thursday, October 3rd, but her employer had called her off that day. When the hospital tried to reach her to let her know she did not need to come in, there was no response. That alone might not mean much on an ordinary day. People miss calls. But combined with Daniel's missing person report, it added weight. The next day, Friday, October 4th, Kayla's mother, Carol Goldman, contacted law enforcement. Carol told them that Kayla never arrived at her home. Her daughter was supposed to come see her, and she never showed up. Now 2 days had passed. No phone call, no text, no appearance at work, no arrival at her mother's house. Kayla Flaherty had vanished. Behind the scenes, detectives were already pulling threads that didn't match Daniel's story. They made an emergency disclosure request to Verizon for location data on Kayla's cell phone. What they found did not support Daniel's version of events. According to Detective Ballard's affidavit, Kayla's phone was hitting a cell tower near County Road 50 North, near Princeton, repeatedly from 12:22 a.m. to 5:36 a.m. on October 3rd. The phone data indicated the device was approximately 6.5 miles northeast of the tower, a distance consistent with the location of the Flaherty home in rural Patoka. The data showed little indication that Kayla had driven toward Vincennes before her disappearance. Her phone never left the area around her house. Daniel had also mentioned to investigators that Kayla's credit card had been used at that gas station in Vincennes. The license plate reader confirmed her vehicle was in Vincennes at 11:50 p.m. on October 2nd, but Daniel said she came back after that to bring a backpack, and then the cell phone data showed the phone sitting near the Flaherty home through the early morning hours of October 3rd. She came home, and she never left again. Police tried to locate Kayla's 2019 Toyota Highlander. The vehicle had a tracking feature, but when Daniel contacted the company to try to enable it, they were unable to do so. That detail sat in the affidavit without further explanation. It is unclear whether the system was disabled or simply malfunctioned. Either way, the Highlander could not be tracked electronically. On Friday, October 4th, detectives brought Daniel in for questioning. Gibson County Sheriff's Detective Jennifer Losh and Indiana State Police Sergeant Chandler conducted the interview. They informed him of his rights, and in that interview room, less than 24 hours after he had reported his wife missing, Daniel Keith Flaherty confessed. He admitted that he struck Kayla multiple times with a hammer in their living room. He admitted that he concealed her body in the Highlander. He admitted that he rigged the vehicle to drive into the Wabash River. He admitted that he set fire to the 2019 Highlander along with Kayla's body. He pointed out the location on a map for investigators. He told them exactly where he had dumped the burning SUV, a spot in far southwest Knox County. Detective Ballard drove out to the location Daniel identified. At 10:25 p.m. on Friday, October 4th, Ballard found the SUV. It was burned. It was in the water. There were human remains inside. Less than 30 minutes before that discovery, Daniel had been booked into the Gibson County Jail at 10:15 p.m. The Knox County Coroner's Office confirmed the death of Kayla Flaherty and conducted an autopsy, working in cooperation with the Gibson County Sheriff's Department and Indiana State Police. On October 6, 2024, a search of the burned vehicle recovered the remnants of Kayla's cell phone, along with identifying documents and personal property. Everything matched what Daniel had described in his confession. Gibson County Sheriff Bruce Van Oven released a statement. He said detectives from the Gibson County Sheriff's Office, Indiana State Police, Vincennes Police Department, and multiple other agencies had worked nearly around the clock to bring Daniel Flaherty to justice. He said the office would partner with the Gibson County Prosecutor's Office to ensure Flaherty was prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. He asked for the family to be given adequate time to grieve. Daniel Flaherty was charged with 1 count of murder. He appeared before Gibson's Superior Court Judge Robert Krieg on Monday morning, October 7, 2024, via video link from the Gibson County Jail. He was advised of the charge. The murder charge in Indiana carries a potential sentence of 45 to 65 years in prison. He requested a public defender. Judge Krieg initially denied that request. A not guilty plea was entered on his behalf. The judge ordered him held without bond. A progress hearing was set for October 26th. At a subsequent hearing, defense attorneys Shonda Lynch and Connor O'Daniel of the firm Foster O'Daniel Hambridge Lynch were brought on to represent him. In a January 2025 hearing, his attorneys asked Judge Krieg for help finding suitable accommodations for confidential meetings with their client at the Gibson County Jail. The judge suggested either transporting Flaherty to the Vanderburgh County Jail for meetings or using the Gibson County jury rooms for private attorney-client communication. A status hearing was scheduled for April 3, 2025. In April 2025, the court set Daniel Flaherty's murder trial for October 20, 2025. Judge Krieg reserved 7 days on the calendar. A final pre-trial hearing was scheduled for September 25, 2025. Attorneys were ordered to exchange and file witness lists, exhibit lists, and all pre-trial motions at least 2 weeks before that final hearing. As of the last available reporting, Daniel Flaherty remained in custody at the Gibson County Jail without bond, awaiting trial. Kayla Flaherty was buried on October 11, 2024 at Memorial Park Cemetery after a funeral service at Goodwin Seaver's funeral home in Vincennes. Bishop Scott Durrant of her church officiated the service. Her obituary described her as a woman whose warm presence and unwavering dedication to those around her would be deeply missed. She was survived by her parents Keith and Carol Goldman, her children Sophie Jean and Parker Keith, her sister Kelly Felt and her husband Peter, her brothers Craig and Clint Goldman and their families, her paternal grandmother Mildred Goldman, and several aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews and cousins. Her family requested that memorial contributions be made to the Sophie and Parker Flaherty Fund, a fund set up for her 2 children, the same kids who now have to grow up without their mother because their father beat her to death with a hammer. Their living room. The timeline from divorce filing to death was 13 days. Kayla filed on September 20th. She was killed on October 3rd. The divorce papers had never even been served. Daniel Flaherty killed his wife before the system could officially tell him what she had already decided, that she was leaving. He reported her missing. He told police she drove to her mother's house and never arrived. He gave them a route to search. He mentioned a gas station. He provided just enough detail to sound like a man trying to help find his wife. And then, in less than 24 hours, detectives pulled cell tower data that made his entire story collapse, and he confessed to everything. Kayla Flaherty worked as a physical therapist assistant. She sang in the choir. She volunteered with high school color guard kids. She made crafts with her children. She was 36. She filed for divorce on September 20th, 2024, and was dead by October 3rd. Her body was set on fire inside her own Toyota Highlander and sent into the Wabash River by the man she married. Daniel Flaherty faces 45 to 65 years if convicted. His trial is set for October 2025. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But Kayla Flaherty is not the only wife on this list whose husband killed her and then tried to control the story afterward. In Orlando, Florida, Teesha Eids filed for divorce from her husband, and within days, she was dead. Her husband then went on the run with their children, and what police found at the crime scene painted one of the most disturbing pictures in this entire series. Case 7. The murder of Teesha Eids. Teesha Renee Eids was 42 years old. She was a mother of 4 and a grandmother of 4, with a 5th grandchild on the way. She was a teacher and the performing arts director at the Saints Academy, a private Christian school serving students from kindergarten through 12th grade in Apopka, Florida. She was a praise dancer at her church, United Hands Ministry, where she had been active for nearly a decade. She participated in community outreach, she worked with children, she led worship through dance. Church leaders Rosalind and John Eason knew her well. Rosalind Eason, who was also a teacher at Saints Academy, described Teesha as a loving person who impacted many lives, and said she was so loving to the children at the school from K through 12. John Eason said her attitude and her efforts were perfect, that it fit every occasion. Her sister-in-law Brandy Benjamin called Teesha the roots of the family. Her friend Latasha Tony said she was like a guardian angel. Her oldest daughter, Cordeja Page, called her the backbone. The family later asked all news outlets to refer to the victim by her maiden name, Eids, not by her married name. That request tells you everything about how they felt about the man she married. Teesha lived in a home in the 5200 block of West Livingston Street in the Orlo Vista area, a community just west of Orlando in Orange County, Florida. She had been married to Lamar Antonio Bryant, 41, for more than 10 years. The couple had children together, including a son named Lamar Bryant Jr. and at least one daughter. Teesha also had an older daughter from before the marriage, Cordeja Page, who was an adult by the time of the killing. At some point before the murder, Teesha filed for divorce from Lamar Bryant. According to the probable cause affidavit reviewed by Law and Crime, Teesha had recently filed for divorce from Bryant, but he refused to sign the divorce paperwork. That detail, his refusal, was stated plainly in the official investigative documents. She wanted out. He would not let go. While his wife was trying to end the marriage, Lamar Bryant was cycling through the criminal justice system. According to Fox 35 Orlando's reporting on court records, Bryant had been arrested multiple times in 2023 for allegedly selling cocaine and fentanyl. Those arrests happened while he was on probation for being caught with a firearm he could not legally possess because of prior drug convictions. In other words, he was on probation for an illegal gun charge rooted in drug crimes, got arrested again for selling cocaine and fentanyl, and kept getting released. His most recent arrest came on March 10, 2025, just 15 days before the murder, for allegedly selling cocaine. He was released on bond from that arrest. At the time of that March 10th arrest, he also had an outstanding warrant for fleeing from police. Released on bond with a pending warrant, that was the man walking around free on March 25th, 2025. Tuesday, March 25th, 2025. That afternoon, Lamar Bryant went to pick up one of his daughters from school. According to the arrest warrant affidavit detailed by Fox 35, when he arrived at the school, Bryant appeared to be intoxicated and was being disrespectful. After leaving the school with his daughter in the car, he did not drive straight home. He stopped at a liquor store first. Then he drove to a storage unit. At the storage unit, Bryant went inside alone. When he came back to the car, he had 2 firearms. According to his daughter's statement to investigators, he removed the 2 guns from his pockets and placed them on the center console of the vehicle. He drove to Teesha's home on West Livingston Street with his daughter in the car and 2 guns sitting on the console between them. When they arrived, Teesha was outside in the driveway. She approached the vehicle on the driver's side and made contact with Bryant. According to the affidavit, the 2 passengers, including the daughter, got out of the car. At that point, Bryant took the 2 firearms and placed them inside his daughter's purse. He told her to hide the bag behind the house. The reason, according to the affidavit, was that Bryant was nervous about a suspected police helicopter flying above the residence. He used his own child to hide his weapons. He put them in her purse and told her to stash them behind her mother's house. The daughter did what he said. Once the helicopter left the area, Bryant went to the spot where the guns were hidden. He came back with the purse and pulled out one of the guns. Around this time, Teesha had gone inside the house to use the restroom. She walked into the residence. According to the affidavit, Lamar Bryant entered the residence soon after. Teesha's daughter was sitting on the porch. Approximately 15 to 20 minutes later, that daughter told investigators she heard pops that sounded like gunshots coming from inside the house. Teesha's mother, Stacey Eids, was also outside at the time. She told Fox 35 that she heard 3 gunshots ring out. 2 of her grandchildren, Teesha's daughters, were inside the home. After the gunshots, Cordeja Page walked into the house. She passed Bryant on her way in. She stopped him and asked what was going on. According to the affidavit, Bryant shrugged his shoulders, said nothing, and then exited the residence through the side carport door. He said one word, "Nothing," then he walked out. Page continued into the house and found her mother in the bathroom. Teesha had been shot in the head. Page later told reporters from WKMG Click Orlando what that moment was like. She said she walked into the house and walked past him, asked him what was going on. He told her nothing, and she found her mother like that. She said it was taking a toll on her because she could not stop seeing what she saw. Stacey Eids, Teesha's mother, made the 911 call. Deputies received it at approximately 3:45 p.m. In the recording, a woman could be heard telling the dispatcher, "My son-in-law shot my daughter." When Orange County Sheriff's Office deputies arrived at the house on West Livingston Street, They found Teesha in the bathroom suffering from a gunshot wound to the head. She was transported to a local hospital. She was pronounced dead. Bryant was gone. He had walked out the carport door after shooting his wife and left the scene. He did not stay. He did not call 911. He did not try to help her. He told his stepdaughter nothing and disappeared. A manhunt began. The Orange County Sheriff's Office issued a warrant for Bryant's arrest on a charge of first-degree murder. He was located the following morning, Wednesday, March 26th, in Kissimmee, about 25 miles south of Orlando. He was arrested on the murder warrant and taken into custody. The probable cause affidavit made the prosecution's theory clear. It stated that based on the facts and circumstances of the investigation, Lamar Bryant consciously decided to commit the murder of Teesha Bryant. It stated that there was no evidence to suggest Teesha Bryant had a firearm or was threatening Lamar Bryant at the time of the homicide. The document described the killing as premeditated. Prosecutors charged him with first-degree premeditated murder. Think about the sequence of events that day. He picked up his daughter from school while intoxicated. He stopped at a liquor store. He drove to a storage unit where he kept firearms. He removed 2 guns and set them on the center console. He drove to his estranged wife's house. He hid the guns in his daughter's purse and told her to stash them behind the house. He waited for a helicopter to leave. He retrieved one of the guns. He followed Teesha into the house, and 15 to 20 minutes later, she was found shot in the head in the bathroom. Every step leading up to the moment he pulled the trigger was a choice. Each one built on the last. This was not a spontaneous act. The affidavit called it premeditated, and the timeline shows why. Bryant appeared before an Orange County judge for his first appearance on Thursday, March 27, 2025. He was denied bond. The court set his next hearing for April 1st. He remained in the Orange County jail, held without bond, charged with first-degree murder. The reporting on Bryant's criminal background raised serious questions about how he was free to commit this murder in the first place. He had been arrested multiple times for selling cocaine and fentanyl in 2023. Those arrests happened while he was already on probation for illegally possessing a firearm as a convicted felon. He caught new drug charges while on probation for a gun charge that was connected to earlier drug crimes. Then, on March 10, 2025, 2 weeks before the murder, he was arrested again for allegedly selling cocaine. And he still had an active warrant for fleeing from police. Despite all of that, he bonded out. 15 days later, he picked up his daughter from school with alcohol on his breath and 2 guns from a storage unit and shot Teesha Eids in the head in her own bathroom. The community around Teesha was devastated. Pastor Rosalind Eason told WKMG Click Orlando that when Teesha's daughter called to tell her the news, she was inside a Sam's Club store. She said that Sam's had never heard a scream like the one she let out. Both Rosalind and John Eason talked about the impact Teesha had made in nearly a decade at their church and school. Rosalind said Teesha touched every aspect of the school and that everyone knew her and loved her. Cordelia Page struggled to hold herself together in interviews. She told WKMG that even though she had so much love around her, the one person she wanted was not there, and she needed her, and she could not get her back. She told reporters that her mother was a fighter. She said her family never would have thought this could happen to them. She mentioned that her mother had recently buried her own sister, and that she and her little sister had just been saying they did not know what they would do if something like that happened to them. And then it did. It was especially hard for Teesha's younger children, because the man who killed their mother was their father. Lamar Bryant Jr. spoke to reporters too. He said everything had happened 2 days before his birthday. He said nothing was adding up for him, nothing was calculating. Despite everything, Cordelia Page said something that revealed the kind of woman her mother was. She said that after what Bryant did, she was sure her mother had already forgiven him. She said her mother was really devoted to God. She told reporters that nobody could pray like her mama prayed. Teesha Eids was a teacher, a performing arts director, a praise dancer, a mother of 4, a grandmother, the heart and the roots and the backbone of her family, depending on which family member you asked. She filed for divorce from a man with a criminal record stretching back years, a man who had been in and out of jail for drugs and guns, a man who had been arrested 15 days before the murder and released on bond. She filed, and he refused to sign the papers. So he picked up his daughter from school, drove to a storage unit, grabbed 2 guns, hid them in his child's purse, and followed Teesha into the bathroom. She was 42 years old. She filed for divorce, and the man who was supposed to sign the papers brought a gun instead. The family set up a GoFundMe account and planned events to celebrate Takesha's legacy and her impact on the community. As of the most recent reporting, Lamar Antonio Bryant remained in the Orange County Jail without bond, awaiting trial on first-degree premeditated murder. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But the cruelty in these cases has a way of getting worse when you think it has already hit bottom. In Springfield, Missouri, just weeks after Takesha was killed, a woman named Julie Kaderna filed for divorce from her husband. And what happened next involved a body found in a bathtub, a staged suicide note, and a husband whose story fell apart. Moment detectives started asking questions. Case 8. The murder of Julie Kaderna. Julie Marlene Kaderna was born Julie Klein on July 20th, 1972, to Marvin and Shelley Klein. She grew up in Climax Springs, Missouri, a tiny town just west of Lake of the Ozarks, where everybody knew everybody, and the teachers doubled as role models and mentors. She graduated from Climax Springs High School in 1990 and went on to attend Missouri State University, where she studied early childhood education. She wanted to be a teacher. That had been her dream since she was a teenager. After the birth of her first child, she spent about 6 months substitute teaching and realized the classroom was not for her. But the love she had for educators never left. It just found a different outlet. In 2005, Julie joined Horace Mann Insurance Company, a company founded specifically to serve educators. She became an insurance agent in Springfield, Missouri, and eventually ran her own agency, Advantage Insurance Services, out of an office at 208 East Kearney Street. Her work was not just selling policies. She helped teachers plan for retirement. She helped them understand their state pension systems. She assisted educators with student loan forgiveness paperwork. She brought breakfast and cookies to school buildings during teacher appreciation events. She did everything she could to make their lives easier. People did not just come into her office for insurance. Her best friend Amy Garrettson said people would stop by just to see her smiling face. She served on the board of the Willard Area Chamber of Commerce and spent several years on the board of the Willard Athletic Booster Club. She wrote on her professional profile that the center of her world was family, that her adult children and her grandson filled her heart with joy every day. Julie had 2 children, a son, Matt Kaderna, and a daughter, Samantha Gray. She had a grandson named Owen. A second grandson, Clark, was expected later in 2025. She was a strong Christian. Her friend Amy Garrettson described her with 3 words: beautiful, kind, thoughtful. Garrettson said Julie would do anything for anybody if she could. She would bend over backwards for everybody and anybody. Julie's cousin, Kathy Ritter Herzog, grew up with her in Climax Springs. They were only a year apart. They went to the same school. Ritter Herzog said they grew up like sisters, that Julie was at their house all summer whenever her mum and dad were working. She said Julie was a sweet, kind person and never had a bad word to say about anyone, and that she was loved by everybody in the community. Julie was married to Jeremy Kaderna. Both were 52 years old. They had been married for 30 years. Jeremy worked as a maintenance lead at Bass Pro Shops. Together they owned a home in Greene County with a Willard mailing address, a property sitting on 28 acres that they had purchased in August 2022. At some point in early 2025, the 30-year marriage reached a breaking point. According to Julie's divorce petition, the couple separated on March 10, 2025. Around that same time, within days of the separation, Julie took a step that showed she did not just want distance from Jeremy, she wanted legal protection. She filed for an emergency order of protection against him. The emergency protection order was issued by Greene County Judge Daniel Wichmer. According to online court records discovered by the Springfield Daily Citizen, Jeremy Kaderna was served with that protection order on March 14, 2025. He knew about it. He had been officially notified by the court. Judge Wichmer set a hearing for April 22nd to determine whether there was cause to convert the emergency order into a full order of protection, which would last longer. At that hearing, Jeremy would have had the right to appear with an attorney and contest the order. That hearing never happened. On April 6, 2025, Julie filed for divorce. The petition stated that the marriage was irretrievably broken. She asked that neither party be required to pay maintenance to the other. She asked that her maiden name of Klein be restored. 5 days. That is how long the divorce petition existed before Jeremy Kaderna killed her. 5 days. Kathy Ritter-Herzog told the Springfield Daily Citizen that she had seen Julie at a wedding earlier that month in Highlandville. Julie was not with her husband. Ritter-Herzog said Julie seemed in good spirits. Ritter-Herzog also said she was unaware of any prior acts of domestic abuse by Jeremy Kaderna, and a review of online court records at the time did not show prior allegations of domestic assault or requests for restraining orders, though the emergency protection order that was in place at the time of the murder was not immediately visible in the public court database, due to the way Missouri's CaseNet system handles different levels of access for the public versus court staff and attorneys. Thursday, April 10th, 2025. Julie went to work at her Horace Mann insurance office at 208 East Kearney Street. Amy Garrettson was there with her. They worked together that day. Garrettson later told KY3 News that they had been friends for 27 years, that Julie was her neighbour when she first moved to Springfield from California, that their daughters were best friends, and that they spent a lot of time together. Thursday was an ordinary workday. Julie was alive. She was at her desk. She was doing her job. Nothing about that day signalled what would happen the next morning. Friday, April 11th, 2025. Shortly after 11 a.m, the Springfield Police Department received a call reporting a burglary in progress at 208 East Kearney Street, Julie's office. Officers were dispatched. When they arrived, they did not find a burglary. They found 2 bodies inside the business. Police determined that Jeremy Kaderna, 52, had gone to his wife's place of work that Friday morning and shot and killed her. He then turned the firearm on himself. Jeremy died from what police described as an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. Both Julie and Jeremy were found dead inside the Horace Mann insurance office. The Springfield Police Department's official news release confirmed the identities: Jeremy Kaderna, 52, and Julie Kaderna, 52, both from Springfield. The release was authorized by Lieutenant John Lowe. Detectives continued to investigate and asked anyone with information to contact the department or make an anonymous call to Crime Stoppers. This was the 4th homicide investigation for Springfield Police in 2025. The details that are not in the police release are the ones that make this case so disturbing. Not because of the act itself. A man shooting his wife and then killing himself is tragically common. What makes it disturbing is the timeline. Julie did everything right. She separated from Jeremy on March 10th. She obtained an emergency order of protection. He was served with that order on March 14th. She filed for divorce on April 6th. She had legal protection in place. She had the court system engaged. She had the paperwork filed. And on April 11th, 5 days after the divorce filing, less than a month after he was served with the protection order, Jeremy walked into her office in the middle of a Friday morning and killed her. The domestic violence community in Springfield responded immediately. Jared Alexander, the executive director of Harmony House, the largest domestic violence shelter in the state of Missouri, spoke to reporters about the case. He said that when someone has made the decision to leave, or has made comments about leaving, the risk of a dangerous situation increases dramatically. He said a recent study showed that 62% of all murder-suicides occur in intimate partner relationships. Jamie Willis, the director of the Greene County Family Justice Center, added further context. She said leaving is the most dangerous time, and that it increases the risk of homicide significantly. She cited a statistic that 75% of domestic violence homicides happen while someone is in the process of leaving or shortly after they have left. She explained that one of the reasons leaving is the most dangerous time is because abusers experience a perceived loss of control. She added that if a victim has recently gotten an order of protection, if there have been recent criminal charges, or if a victim has recently filed for divorce, those actions can escalate the abuser's tactics as they try to regain power and control. That is exactly what happened here. Julie separated. She got the protection order. She filed for divorce. Every step she took to protect herself and legally end the marriage was a step that, according to domestic violence experts, elevated the danger she was in. The system she was relying on, the courts, the protection orders, the legal process, could not move fast enough. The April 22nd hearing to convert the emergency order into a full protection order was still 11 days away when Jeremy killed her. The divorce had been filed 5 days earlier. The protection order had been in place for nearly a month. None of it stopped him from walking into that office. Her friend Amy Garrettson worked with her the day before and had no idea it would be the last time. Garrettson told KY3 that Julie was passionate about helping teachers. She did teacher appreciation events, brought food to school buildings, did everything she could to make educators' lives easier. Garrettson said everybody who knew Julie was going to miss her tremendously, that she was going to be missed. She said Julie's friends described the situation as domestic violence. The Springfield Daily Citizen's reporting on this case revealed a gap in public access to court records that has implications beyond this one case. The initial report stated that a review of online court records did not show prior allegations of domestic assault or requests for restraining orders. It was only after a source reached out to the newspaper that reporters were able to confirm the emergency protection order actually existed and was on file in Missouri's CaseNet system. The newspaper explained that CaseNet has different levels of clearance and that what is available to lawyers and court staff is not always available to the general public or reporters. A search under Jeremy Kaderna's name on the Monday after the murder did not initially reveal any protection orders to the reporter searching, even though the order had been in place since March. That gap matters. If the existence of a protection order is not easily visible to the public, it raises questions about transparency and about whether the people who need to know about it, employers, family members, friends, have any way of learning about the danger someone may be in. The Springfield Daily Citizen asked police additional questions, including whether anyone else was present in the office when the shooting happened, and who made the 911 call. Police declined to answer those questions while the investigation remained ongoing. Julie's obituary was published by Green Lawn Funeral Home in Springfield. It described her as a woman whose life was anchored by her faith and her boundless love for her family. It said she poured herself out for the people she cared about, always putting their needs ahead of her own, regardless of time or resources. It said her generosity, compassion and selflessness defined her, and that those who knew her were better for it. It said Julie would be missed beyond words and remembered forever for her kindness, strength, and the deep love she gave so freely. She was survived by her son Matt Kaderna and his wife Bailey, her daughter Samantha Gray, her grandson Owen, her expected grandson Clark, her parents Marvin and Shelley Klein, her brother Jason Klein and his wife Jennifer, and many nieces, nephews, cousins, and friends. The obituary did not mention Jeremy Kaderna. His name does not appear anywhere in the text. The family chose to bury Julie under the name she was born with, the name she had asked the court to restore just 5 days before she was killed, Julie Klein. That is who she was before the 30 years, before the marriage, before the separation, the protection order, the divorce filing, and the Friday morning when her husband walked into her insurance office and ended her life. Julie Kaderna's murder was part of a broader pattern in Springfield that year. In 2025, the city saw 3 separate murder-suicides. In each one, a man killed his female partner or wife and then killed himself. 3 incidents, 4 female victims, 3 dead perpetrators, all men killing women they were in relationships with. The Springfield Daily Citizen reported that while the total number of homicides in the city actually went down in 2025 compared to previous years, the proportion of those homicides that were domestic murder-suicides went up. Julie grew up in Climax Springs. She studied education. She built a career helping the people who teach children. She was a mother of 2, a grandmother, a cousin who grew up like a sister, a friend for 27 years, a board member, a volunteer, a woman of faith. She separated from her husband on March 10th. She got a protection order. He was served on March 14th. She filed for divorce on April 6th. She asked for her maiden name back. 5 days later, on April 11th, Jeremy Kaderna walked into 208 East Kearney Street shortly after 11 a.m. and made sure the divorce would never be finalized. She was 52 years old. The protection order did not protect her. The divorce filing did not save her. The legal system moved at the speed of calendars and hearings and paperwork. Jeremy Kaderna moved at the speed of a man who had already decided what he was going to do, and Julie Kaderna died at her desk, in the office she built, surrounded by the work she loved, 5 days after asking a court to give her back her own name. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But not every husband in this series killed his wife and then himself. Some of them planned to get away with it. In Encino, California, a retired doctor named Linda Farzan had filed for divorce from her husband, and what happened next involved a crime scene so carefully staged that investigators initially could not tell whether they were looking at a murder or suicide. The answer came down to a single detail that her husband never thought anyone would notice. Case 9. The murder of Linda Kashani. Linda Kashani was 54 years old. She was born on March 1, 1970 in Iran. She was of Persian Jewish background. She lived in Santa Monica, California, with her husband Shahram Farzan, who went by Sean, and their 3 children. The youngest was a 13-year-old boy whom Linda homeschooled. The other 2 children were older. Linda and Sean Farzan had been married for years, and for the last stretch of that marriage, according to people close to Linda, the situation had gotten bad enough that friends described what happened next as a tragedy waiting to happen. In November 2022, Linda filed for divorce from Sean Farzan. She was seeking spousal support and child support. That is an important date. November 2022. Not November 2024, not January 2025, November 2022. She filed for divorce more than 2 years before she was killed. The divorce proceedings were never finalised. For over 2 years, Linda Kashani was trying to legally end her marriage, and by the time she died on a sidewalk in Encino with a bullet in her head, the paperwork still was not done. 2 years. Think about what that means. Think about what it is like to live in a situation you are actively trying to leave, where the legal system you are counting on to get you out has been grinding along for 26 months, and you are still not free. That is where Linda was in February 2025. Still married, still going through divorce proceedings, still connected to a man she had been trying to separate from since before her youngest son turned 11. During those 2 years, Linda found comfort and support in her community. She was close with Rabbi Bijan Zangan and his wife Natalie. Rabbi Zangan led a small Iranian Jewish synagogue called Kol Eliezer, which operated out of the back of his house in Encino, in the 5100 block of Hesperia Avenue, near Lindley Avenue and Ventura Boulevard. Linda, the rabbi, and his wife were all of Persian Jewish background. The rabbi told the Jewish Journal that Linda used to visit them often. His wife Natalie was very close to Linda and had been offering her support for months. This was not a casual friendship. This was a woman reaching out to people in her faith community for help during what was clearly a difficult and drawn-out period in her life. Wednesday, February 5th, 2025. That evening, Linda drove to Rabbi Zangan's home in Encino to attend a religious meeting. She brought her 13-year-old son with her, the boy she homeschooled. The family lived in Santa Monica, not in the Encino neighborhood. This was a visit, not a trip home. According to police and multiple news reports, Sean Farzan was also present. The couple had gone to the residence together, or Sean had followed, or he had come along. The exact arrangement of how both of them ended up at that location has not been fully detailed by investigators. What is clear is that both Linda and Sean were there that evening, along with their teenage son. Rabbi Zangan later told the Jewish Journal something that puts a sharp edge on the timeline. He said Linda had been inside his house just 2 minutes before the shooting happened. 2 minutes. She had been sitting in the home of a rabbi and his wife, in a place of faith and friendship and safety, and then she walked outside, and within minutes she was dead. Here is what investigators say happened. At some point after leaving the rabbi's home, Linda and Sean were inside their SUV. Their 13-year-old son was in the back seat. An argument started between the couple inside the vehicle. According to Fox 11 Los Angeles, investigators believe Linda got out of the SUV in an attempt to defuse the situation. She was trying to de-escalate. She stepped out of the vehicle. Sean Farzan followed her out. He began shooting. He kept shooting until she collapsed. Neighbor Juan Carlos Reyes was inside his home nearby. He heard the gunfire. He told Fox 11 it sounded rapid and continuous. He said it was just pop, 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 back to back. He said he did not think anything of it at first until his wife went outside and told him there was police activity. Other neighbors reported hearing at least 5 gunshots before anyone called the police. Officers with the Los Angeles Police Department were dispatched to the 5100 block of Hesperia Avenue around 7:22 p.m. on reports of shots fired. The location was 2 blocks south of Ventura Boulevard. When officers arrived, they found Linda Kashani lying in the middle of the street with a gunshot wound to the head. ABC7 reported she was found in the street, Multiple outlets confirmed she had been shot several times. She was pronounced dead at the scene. The formal pronouncement of death was made at 7:35 p.m, 13 minutes after police were called. Their 13-year-old son witnessed the entire thing. He was there. He saw his father shoot his mother to death on a residential street in Encino on a Wednesday evening. After shooting Linda, Sean Farzan ran. He fled the scene on foot. He did not get far. Police captured him about 2 blocks away, near the intersection of Ventura Boulevard and Newcastle Avenue. He was taken into custody without incident. No chase, no standoff. He just ran, got caught, and that was it. LAPD, Lieutenant Guy Golan, spoke to reporters at the scene. He described what happened in plain language. He said it appeared to be an isolated incident of domestic violence. He confirmed the couple did not live in the neighborhood. The Los Angeles County Department of Medical Examiner officially identified the victim as Linda Farzan Kashani. The coroner investigator assigned to the case was Bonnie Huerta. The deputy medical examiner was Dr. Richard O. The manner of death was ruled homicide. The coroner's report confirmed that the decedent was shot to death by her husband after she exited a vehicle in which they had been arguing, and that their teen son was in the back seat when it happened. Sean Farzan was 64 years old. His date of birth was October 28, 1960. He was initially held on $3 million bail following his arrest. 5 days later, on February 10th, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office filed formal charges. Sean Farzan was charged with 1 count of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony child abuse under circumstances or conditions likely to cause great bodily injury or death. The child abuse charge stemmed from the fact that the couple's teenage son was present during the killing and witnessed the entire thing. The case number was 25-VWC-F00183. After the charges were filed, Farzan was held without bail. Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan J. Hochman announced the charges publicly. His statement was direct. He called it a tragic and deeply disturbing shooting that took place in front of a child. He said no family should ever have to endure such a tragedy. He said his office would do everything in its power to ensure that the person responsible was held fully accountable. He said they would continue to support the victims' loved ones as the case moved forward. The case was being prosecuted by the DA's Family Violence Division. It was investigated by the Los Angeles Police Department. Sean Farzan's arraignment was set for February 20th, 2025, in Department 100 of the Van Nuys Courthouse. If convicted as charged, he faced life in prison without the possibility of parole. Now step back and look at the full picture of what happened here. Linda Farzan Kashani filed for divorce in November 2022. For over 2 years, the divorce was unresolved. During those 2+ years, she was homeschooling her youngest child. She was visiting her rabbi and his wife regularly for support and comfort. She was living in Santa Monica with 3 kids. She was going through one of the hardest things a person can go through, trying to legally untangle herself from a marriage, and the process was dragging on and on and on. And on a Wednesday night in February 2025, she went to a religious meeting at the home of people who cared about her. She brought her son. 2 minutes after leaving the rabbi's house, she was in an SUV with her husband and their boy. An argument started. She got out, trying to calm things down. Her husband followed her into the street. He shot her multiple times. Neighbours heard what sounded like 5 rapid gunshots. She fell in the middle of the road with a bullet wound to her head. Her son watched from inside the vehicle or from nearby. She was dead before paramedics could do anything. Pronounced at 7:35 p.m, gone. The people around Linda saw this coming. The Jewish Journal specifically reported that according to close friends of the wife, this was a tragedy waiting to happen. Those are not the words of people who were blindsided. Those are the words of people who were watching a disaster build in slow motion and could not stop it. Rabbi Zangen and his wife Natalie had been helping Linda for months. They knew what she was dealing with. Natalie Zangen was described as being devastated by what happened. After Linda's death, the community mobilized to help her children. The Chesed Fund opened a fundraiser with a goal of raising $300,000 for the 3 kids. Linda's 2 older children went to stay with their grandparents in Woodland Hills. The 13-year-old who witnessed the murder, the boy Linda had been homeschooling, was left without his mother and with the memory of watching his father kill her on a quiet residential street 2 blocks from Ventura Boulevard. Months after the killing, Jewish Journal columnist Tabby Raphael wrote about Linda in a column published before Passover 2025. Raphael included Linda among 3 Jewish individuals the community should keep in mind during the holiday. She wrote that Linda was shot outside a friend's home after attending a religious meeting and that her teenage son witnessed the tragedy. She wrote that Linda's death had shaken the community and caused untold pain. There is something about the length of this divorce that makes this case different from some of the others in this video. In other cases, the murder happened within days or weeks of the divorce filing. Kelly Robarge was killed the same day she went to court. Julie Kaderna was dead 5 days after filing. Kayla Flaherty was killed 13 days after. But Linda Kashani filed for divorce in November 2022 and was murdered in February 2025. 27 months. That is not a snap reaction by a husband who just found out his wife wants to leave. That is something else entirely. That is over 2 years of knowing the marriage is ending, over 2 years of the legal process grinding forward, and then one Wednesday evening, in front of a rabbi's house, with a child in the back seat, it ends with gunfire in the street. The divorce was still pending when she died. After 27 months, it was still not finalised. Linda asked for spousal and child support in her original filing. The proceedings just kept going, and going, and going. And while they went, Sean Farzan remained legally connected to the woman he would eventually kill. He remained the father of her children. He remained someone who apparently had enough access and proximity to her life that they ended up in the same SUV on a Wednesday night, driving to a rabbi's house in Encino, with their son in the back. Whether Sean drove there with Linda or showed up separately, the end result was the same. They were in that vehicle together. The argument started. She tried to walk away from it. She tried to get out, to put physical distance between herself and the conflict, and he followed her. That is the detail that runs through almost every case in this series. The woman tries to leave, the relationship, the argument, the house, the car, and the man follows. The act of leaving is what triggers the violence, not staying, leaving. LAPD Lieutenant Golan called it an isolated incident of domestic violence. In one sense, he was right. It was isolated to that street, that evening, that couple. But in another sense, there is nothing isolated about it. It is the same pattern playing out over and over again. A woman files for divorce. A man cannot accept it. And at some point, whether it is the same day or 27 months later, he decides that if he cannot keep her, no one will have her, not even herself. Sean Farzan ran 2 blocks before police caught him. He did not turn the gun on himself like Jeremy Kaderna did. He did not drive away and try to dispose of a body like Daniel Flaherty did. He shot his wife in the street in front of witnesses and their own child, and then he ran. 2 blocks. That is how far he got before officers arrested him without incident near Ventura Boulevard and Newcastle Avenue. As of the last available reporting, Shahram Sean Farzan remained in custody without bail, facing 1 count of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony child abuse. The case was being prosecuted by the Family Violence Division of the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. If convicted as charged, he faces life in prison without the possibility of parole. His 3 children, including the 13-year-old boy who watched his mother die, were left without both parents. Their mother was dead. Their father was in a jail cell. The grandparents in Woodland Hills were left to pick up pieces that could never be fully put back together. Linda Kashani was 54 years old. She was born in Iran. She was a mother of 3. She homeschooled her youngest. She found comfort in her faith and in the friendship of a rabbi and his wife, who tried to help her for months. She filed for divorce in November 2022. She waited over 2 years for the system to set her free. On February 5, 2025, at 7:25 p.m, on a sidewalk in Encino, 2 minutes after leaving a religious meeting, her husband shot her dead in front of their son. She was pronounced dead at 7:35 p.m, 10 minutes from the first gunshot to the official time of death. 27 months of divorce proceedings, and it ended in 10 minutes on Hesperia Avenue. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But Linda Kashani's case is not the last one in this series. In Simi Valley, California, a woman named Rachel Castillo vanished in November 2022, and for months, Her family was told she had simply walked away from her life. It was not until investigators started pulling apart her husband's story that the truth about what really happened to Rachel began to surface. Case 10. The murder of Rachel Castillo. Rachel Castillo was 25 years old. She grew up in Simi Valley, California, the youngest of 3 daughters born to Christopher and Robin Castillo. Her older sisters were Clara and Emily. The family was Catholic. Rachel attended St. Rose of Lima School in Simi Valley as a child and was a regular parishioner and volunteer at the church her entire life. She went on to Lorena High School in Thousand Oaks, where she graduated with a 4.28 GPA. Her father, Christopher, later said he did not even know you could get above a 4.0. Rachel earned a full scholarship to the University of California, Santa Cruz, where she studied psychology and minored in visual arts. It was there, as a freshman, that she met a young man named Zarbab Ali, who went by Bobby. They started dating. In 2017, while Rachel was still a student, their first son was born. She became an advocate on campus for other students who were also raising children while going to school. The couple married in November 2018. Their second son was born in 2020. By then, Rachel had earned her bachelor's degree and moved back to the Simi Valley area with Ali and their 2 boys. After college, Rachel took a job at Interface Children and Family Services, a non-profit organisation in Camarillo that provides resources for children and families facing crisis situations involving domestic violence, child abuse and mental health. She worked as a Medi-Cal navigator, helping people, especially Spanish speakers and the homeless community, access resources and services they might not otherwise know about. Her mother Robin said Rachel particularly enjoyed connecting vulnerable people to the help they needed. Rachel wants to become a marriage and family therapist, just like her mother, who was completing her own apprenticeship to become a licensed therapist. Rachel enrolled in Pepperdine University's graduate program in the summer of 2022 to earn her master's degree in clinical psychology, specializing in marriage and family therapy. She was following in her mother's footsteps, attending the same universities Robin had gone to for her undergraduate and graduate work. But by that point, the marriage was falling apart. Court documents show that Rachel and Ali separated in June 2021. Rachel filed for divorce in March 2022, citing irreconcilable differences. She was awarded primary physical custody of their 2 sons. In June 2022, the county's child support agency recommended Ali pay around $2,000 per month in child support. November 2nd, 2022 would have been the couple's 4th wedding anniversary. Instead of celebrating it, Rachel was living with her sister Emily in an apartment in the 300 block of Country Club Drive in the Wood Ranch area of Simi Valley. Ali had moved out and was living in Hawthorne, about an hour away. They shared custody of the boys, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. On the stand during his trial 3 years later, Ali said that their marriage went from amazing to something dark. He claimed he became convinced Rachel was having an affair with a childhood friend, and that when she told him she wanted a divorce, she said it was because she had fallen in love with someone else. Ali said he could not control his jealous rage. He told the court that Rachel was his entire world at that point, and it all just crashed around him. In his recorded confession to police, which was played for the jury, Ali told investigators something much more chilling. He said there was no reason for killing Rachel, but he had been thinking about killing her since they separated 9 months earlier. 9 months of thinking about it. Not a sudden explosion of anger, not a split-second decision. 9 months of turning it over in his mind while sharing custody of 2 little boys with the woman he was planning to murder. Thursday, November 10th, 2022. That morning, around 8:30 a.m, Ali arrived at the Simi Valley apartment to pick up the boys as part of their shared custody arrangement. He took them and drove to his parents' home in Victorville, about an hour and a half away in San Bernardino County. He claimed he left Rachel's apartment about 30 minutes after picking up the kids and said he arrived in Victorville around 11:30 a.m. But he went back. According to prosecutors and Ali's own confession, after dropping the children off with his parents in Victorville, Ali drove back to Simi Valley. He knew Rachel would be alone. Emily was at work. The boys were in Victorville. The apartment would be empty except for Rachel. When he got there, Ali found the front door unlocked. He went inside. He turned off the lights. And then he waited. He waited in the dark for Rachel to come out of her bedroom. This is the detail that elevated the charges to first-degree murder with the special allegation of lying in wait. He did not confront her at the door, He did not ambush her as she pulled into the parking lot. He went inside her home, turned off the lights, and stood in the darkness of a hallway, waiting for the woman he used to be married to, the mother of his 2 sons, to walk out of her room so he could kill her. When Rachel stepped into the dark hallway, Ali confronted her. He stabbed her 11 times in the neck and chest. Prosecutors said 7 of those 11 stab wounds were fatal. She died in the hallway of her own apartment. After killing Rachel, Ali wrapped her body in a blanket. He attempted to clean up the blood, but there was too much of it. The police would later describe finding a significant amount of blood at the scene, along with evidence that a struggle had occurred inside the apartment. Ali placed Rachel's body in the trunk of his vehicle, which he had left open in advance. He had come prepared. He drove out to Little Rock, California, a remote desert area in the Antelope Valley, accessible only by a dirt road. He buried Rachel in a shallow grave, using a shovel he had recently purchased. Then he drove back to his parents' house in Victorville. That night, after his children and his parents had gone to sleep, Ali left the house again. It was after 2 a.m. He drove back to the burial site in Little Rock. He dug Rachel's body up, and then he committed an act so grotesque that it is difficult to put into plain words. But it must be stated because it is part of the official record, and it is what the jury heard. He sexually assaulted Rachel's remains. In his recorded confession to police, played during the trial, Ali said, "Just to confirm that I am a monster, I raped her." He then said, "If I didn't commit to being a monster, then she would have died for no reason." He reburied her body after the trial assault and drove back to Victorville. The next step Ali took was possibly the cruelest part, short of the murder itself. He pretended nothing had happened. He went about his days. He even posted on Facebook over the weekend, asking everyone who knew anything about his ex-wife's whereabouts to call the police. He played the role of a concerned father whose children's mother had gone missing. Rachel's own mother, Robin Castillo, spoke with Ali over that weekend. She later told ABC News that it had seemed like a very normal conversation. He expressed concern about Rachel being missing. He asked questions. He acted worried, and the entire time, he already knew exactly where Rachel was, because he was the one who put her there. Thursday evening, November 10th. Emily Castillo came home to the apartment on Country Club Drive after work. She walked in and immediately saw blood, a lot of it. She searched the apartment, the bathroom, under the bed, the closets, the laundry room, every room. But Rachel was not there. Her phone was still at the apartment. Her car keys were there. Her car was in the parking lot. Her wallet was there. Everything that Rachel would have taken with her if she had left voluntarily was still sitting in the apartment. The only thing missing was Rachel herself. Emily called her mother first, then she called 911. The call came in to the Simi Valley Police Department at 8:31 p.m. Officers responded and found the scene. Based on the evidence, the blood, the signs of a struggle, the victim's belongings left behind, they immediately suspected that a crime involving serious injury had occurred. This was not treated as a routine missing persons case. This was treated as a potential homicide from the first moments. A massive search began. The Simi Valley Police Department led the investigation, with assistance from the FBI, including the Bureau's Evidence Response Team, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, and the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. Rachel's father, Christopher Castillo, was himself a retired law enforcement officer with connections to the FBI. He and friends who were retired FBI agents began working the case on their own, separately from police, while also sharing information with the official investigation. Christopher later told ABC News that he had a suspect list in mind and a theory about what had happened. Family and friends held a prayer vigil at St. Rose of Lima Catholic Church on Sunday evening, November 13th, hoping for good news. The news that came was not good. That same day, Sunday, November 13th, Simi Valley detectives and FBI agents searched a remote area of desert outside Little Rock in the Antelope Valley. They found a dirt road with noticeable vehicle tracks extending about 70 yards, ending at a patch of multiple spots where soil had been recently disturbed. About 20 yards southeast of one of those disturbed patches, investigators discovered a used metal shovel. Beneath one of the areas of freshly moved dirt, they found Rachel's body. The medical examiner identified the remains as Rachel Castillo. Her place of death was listed as desert. The manner of death was ruled homicide. That same afternoon, Zarbab Ali was arrested as he was leaving his parents' home in Victorville. He was 25 years old. He was taken into custody in connection with Rachel's homicide and booked on suspicion of murder. Bail was set at $510,000. The investigation had moved fast. Cell phone data and license plate readers helped investigators track Ali's movements on the day of the murder. A neighbour at the apartment complex had reported seeing Ali near the building around the time of the killing. The evidence trail pointed straight to him. 3 days from the 911 call to the discovery of the body and the arrest. On November 15th, Ventura County District Attorney Eric Nasarenko held a press conference at the Hall of Justice in Ventura, flanked by representatives of the agencies that worked the case. He announced 1 count of murder against Ali, charged in the first degree with the special allegations of lying in wait and personal use of a knife. The charges were serious enough that they could have been grounds for capital punishment under California law. Nasarenko made a point of not just talking about the defendant. He displayed 2 large photos of Rachel and talked about who she was. He said they wanted to lift up Rachel, her memory, and celebrate her life. He said this was a 25-year-old woman who had a bright and inspiring future, which was unfortunately taken from her. Ali's first court appearance was scheduled for November 16th at Ventura County Superior Court. He appeared via Zoom from his jail cell, his face barely visible through the security slot in his white cell door. He did not enter a plea. His public defender, Matthew Benitez, requested a 4-week continuance, which was granted by Judge Nancy Ayers. Authorities also revealed that Ali had been placed on a Level 1 safety precaution, meaning he was exhibiting suicidal thoughts or behaviour. He was essentially on suicide watch. Rachel's funeral was held at St. Rose of Lima Church. More than 200 people attended. Hundreds of colourful flowers covered the altar around photographs of Rachel. The Reverend Joseph Shee, the pastor who had known Rachel since she was a child, spoke to the crowd. He said Rachel's death was so painful because Rachel was so alive. Christopher Castillo spoke publicly about his daughter multiple times in the weeks after her death. He said something that captured the bitter irony of the entire case in a single sentence. He pointed out that Rachel was a mum who divorced her husband, who worked in a domestic violence prevention centre, who worked with battered mums, and she ended up getting murdered by her ex-husband. He said when Rachel announced she was getting divorced, the family stood by her. Then he added something that has clearly haunted him. He said maybe he should have stood by her a little better. He said he could even remember telling her to work through her problems. In hindsight, he said, it saddened him that he said that. That is a father carrying a weight that no parent should ever have to carry. Not just the grief of losing his youngest daughter, but the second-guessing, the wondering, the replaying of conversations in his head, wondering if different advice could have led to a different outcome. Robin Castillo, Rachel's mother, described the betrayal in terms that went beyond the murder itself. She said she had loved Ali like a son. She said she had let him into the family. She said for him to do this and then play along, pretending to be upset and worried while Rachel was missing. That was what hurt her heart. After the murder, Rachel's 2 boys, then 5 and 2, were placed in the middle of a custody battle. Ali's parents wanted custody. The Castillo family wanted the boys raised by Rachel's family. Christopher Castillo said one of the most important things they could do to honour Rachel's legacy was to ensure his family raised those children. Eventually, Rachel's oldest sister Clara and her husband adopted both boys and began raising them as their own. The case took 3 years to reach trial. Proceedings were delayed multiple times, including a 6-month continuance granted in 2023. Before the trial began on November 6, 2025, Ali pleaded guilty to a separate felony charge, sexual contact with human remains. The plea was entered before the murder trial started. The trial itself lasted about 2 weeks. The prosecution presented more than 20 witnesses. The defense presented 4, including Ali himself. On the stand, Ali admitted to killing Rachel. He admitted to the stabbing. He said it on video during his police confession, his 4th interview with detectives after the body was found, and he said it again in court. The question at trial was not whether he killed her, but whether it was first-degree murder or second-degree murder. The lying in wait allegation was the key. If the jury found he had been lying in wait, it was first degree, and that carried the special circumstance that made the sentence life without parole. The jury was made up of 10 men and 2 women. They deliberated for 3 hours. On November 21, 2025, they returned their verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. The special allegations of lying in wait and use of a deadly weapon were found true. One other special allegation, murder for financial gain, was not found true by the jury, but it did not matter for the sentence. Rachel's father, Christopher, spoke after the verdict. He said the family was very happy that justice would be served in this case, in this life and the next. He said Ali called himself a monster on the stand, and that was exactly what he is. Sentencing took place on January 12, 2026, before Ventura County Superior Court Judge Paul Feldman. 6 of Rachel's loved ones delivered victim impact statements. They wept. Ali displayed no visible emotion. He stared at the wall while they spoke. The family described Rachel as a devoted mother, a loving sister, a daughter, and a friend, with a soft-spoken voice that would make anyone smile. They said she had dreams for herself and her boy's future before she was murdered. One family member spoke directly to Ali and told him he was there because he was a coward, that he had turned to violence and harmed his own sons, 2 innocent children whose lives were forever changed. Kayla Castillo, who had adopted the boys, asked the court a question that has no good answer. She asked, "How do you explain to a 2-year-old that their daddy stabbed their mummy, and now they are not going to see their mummy anymore?" She said the boys never got to say goodbye, and Rachel never got to give them one last hug. She said the youngest son was nearly 2 at the time of the murder and does not remember his mother at all. The oldest was 5 and was currently in therapy. Robin Castillo told the court she had trusted Ali, and he had betrayed that trust by taking Rachel away forever. She said he should never be allowed the freedom he stole from her daughter. Christopher Castillo said this was a vile and evil act, with repercussions not only in this life, but in the next. He said he hoped that after serving a life sentence in prison, his former son-in-law would spend eternity in hell. Senior Deputy District Attorney David Russell, who prosecuted the case, addressed the court. He said that where any human being should feel shame, disgust, and loathing for what he has done, the defendant has shown no remorse. He said Ali's actions place him among the very worst offenders the court would ever see. He argued that Ali displayed no remorse and would harm another person again if given the chance. He said no amount of incentives or disincentives could keep the community safe from him. Judge Feldman imposed the maximum sentence: life in prison without the possibility of parole. He said that whatever he sentenced Ali to would not bring back Rachel. He said that in one act, 2 children lost both parents, and there were no words for that. Russell also asked the judge to formally find that this was a domestic violence case, which Feldman agreed to do. The judge ordered Ali to pay restitution to the Castillo family and to have no contact with them. Ali was scheduled to return to court on February 11, 2026, for a hearing on whether to order him to register as a sex offender. Rachel Castillo was 25 years old. She grew up in Simi Valley. She went to Catholic school. She earned a full scholarship. She graduated from UC Santa Cruz. She gave birth to 2 sons. She worked at a non-profit that helped domestic violence victims. She enrolled at Pepperdine to become a therapist, just like her mother. She filed for divorce. She was building a life for herself and her boys, and on a Thursday in November 2022, the man she was divorcing drove back to her apartment after dropping their children off, walked through an unlocked door, turned off the lights, waited in the dark, and stabbed her 11 times. She was found 3 days later in a shallow grave in the desert. She never got to finish her master's degree. She never got to become a therapist. She never got to see her boys start kindergarten, play sports, grow up. Her oldest son is in therapy. Her youngest does not remember her face. Every case in this video ends the same way. A woman decides to leave, a man decides she cannot, and the space between those 2 decisions is where the killing happens. 10 women, 10 marriages or relationships that were ending. 10 men who could not accept it. Some of them shot their wives, some stabbed them. One used a hammer. One has never been determined. Some did it in homes. One did it in an office. One did it on a sidewalk in front of a rabbi's house. One did it in a hallway with the lights turned off. But the trigger in every single case was the same. She tried to leave, and he made sure she never could. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.